Okay, everyone, can you guys hear me there? At the, looks like it. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. So, going to get a roll call from Kathy.
Well, this will be fun. Okay, Saban. Okay, Schreiber. All right, Bergbauer. Galogli. Deskin.
Here.
Lobes. Bartleson. Peretta. All right, I see her. She's just not unmuted. Okay, we have a quorum.
All right, very good. Thank you, everyone. Our police chaplain couldn't make it here tonight, so I will open us up in a prayer. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to serve our community in this time. We thank you for your grace, your mercy. But Lord, we ask for wisdom tonight as we try to work through our agenda tonight and do city business and keep things moving forward in this time. We ask that you protect our families and those in our community here from this virus, Lord. We pray that you put a dome of protection over our city, and we pray for safety and well-being. I pray for wisdom for all those in the country who are working so hard to keep everyone safe and healthy. And so, Father, we just ask for your grace and your mercy. Amen. Okay, friends. So this is our first attempt, well, actually, our first attempt at a live city council meeting with an agenda and some petitioners. So we'll do our best, and I appreciate staff and everyone who's put the time into making this work. Our petitioners here are in different rooms in City Hall, so we are certainly meeting our minimum distance requirements with people in conference room, people in my office and elsewhere. So we'll do what we can to get through this. Why don't we just go ahead and jump right into things. We'll go to PW1, and that would be Baxter and Woodman.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This evening, do have one item on the agenda for consideration. This is PW-1. This is for a project, a 2020 stormwater project. What we've selected this.
Greg, could you stand by Ben or the
Sure.
podium? I think, is the podium connected? Yeah, the podium should be on. Okay, yeah, so I would go to the podium.
Okay.
Okay, if they keep hearing him, because he's not going through.
It's too soon, because we're.
I didn't go into Zoom. I stayed
He's
on.
not going through Zoom, that's what they couldn't hear us from the room. So you think you're gonna use my
Yeah,
CD?
And that should still pick up for the public.
Yes. Yes. Because we heard you fine on TV.
Why don't you do it for sound testing?
All right. Everybody hear me now?
Yes.
All right. My apologies for that. So this evening, I would like to present to council for consideration PW-1. This is the design services, phase 2 engineering services for the 2020 stormwater program. Every year we pick a new project, and we try to keep the budget around $100,000 for construction, around $25,000 to $30,000 for engineering. This year we have selected for Broken Arrow subdivision. There are some rear yard drainage issues along Barrel Road, 1679 U17 206 Buffalo Court. Essentially what happens is it kind of rains some pumps, and essentially the water in that whole area gets through Barrel Road and not get on there. So what we're looking to do with this project, look at that water getting underground, get it across Barrel Road, and get it to where it all has to go. So this evening, looking for council's consideration for this task order in the amount of $28,340. It would be for the Phase 2 engineering for Baxter and Woodman, and would ask for council's consideration to put this on consent for the following city council meeting.
All right, everyone, can you guys hear me? Yes? Okay. Just looking for questions, concerns, thoughts?
Good to go. Consent?
Okay, looks, I don't see any objections, so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Put it on
Thank you,
consent.
council.
Oh, did you have a question, Catherine? Go ahead, Catherine, I think you're live.
Amy?
Yep.
Is Catherine talking?
Oh, I never see you guys checking in, so I see too many things on the screen here. No, I'm fine with that. We walked down that area today, looking at some of that areas. So, thank you.
Okay, we'll put it on consent. Thanks, everyone. All right, next one, AT1, Second Amendment to the Annexation Agreement, Oak Creek.
Oh, okay. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you. This is a second amendment to the annexation agreement regarding the Oak Creek subdivision. Oh, I'm sorry, Oak Creek subdivision. And this is a property that has like one phase or a couple phases left. Originally, it was annexed back in 2003, in which the original developer was Centex. Since then, the developer is now Yukon Development, and Chris Cazos is the owner of Yukon Development, MC Custom Homes, and also the owner of the property through the trust. And so the annexation agreement was amended, and this would be the second amendment to the annexation agreement. This is in line with the amendment to the PUD that Lance would be talking about, and this is in conjunction with that change. The change to the annexation agreement, the second amendment, is as follows. There will be an increase in the number of residential units from 161 to 163. There's going to be a clarification of the landscaping of the parkways. And 3, the extension of the annexation agreement to 2030. The annexation agreement, when it was approved back in 2003, was for 20 years, going to 2023. So it would expire in December 2023. Based upon this change, we believe that the amendment, the annexation agreement should be extended to 2023. So without any other, everything's included in the memo. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to entertain them. The actual public hearing on the amendment to the annexation agreement will be at the City Council meeting on April 15th. We published a notification as required by state statute on that, and we anticipate that that's when the public hearing will be. The actual developer, Chris Cazo, is here if there's any questions.
Anybody got anything?
Yeah, I just had one question. I want to thank Lance for the work he's done on this, as well as the developer. However, looking at what we have so far for 3A, and eventually what will be mirrored in 3B, I believe that we need that both roads that are east-west in the new development are too long. They're beyond neighborhood walkable. So I would like to see a north-south street put in the middle of 3A, where it eventually connects to 3B, to have a north-south connection in the development.
Well, that would be the actual amendment to the PUD, the amendment to the special use that will be discussed by Lance after this. This is just the actual amendment, the second amendment.
All right.
And obviously, any approval for the amendment to the PUD would be subject to the approval of the annexation agreement. So if you want to just, kind of hold that question for the next
Yep,
part.
that's fine.
Thank you. Any other
I have a
questions on the,
question.
yes?
What was highlighted in here, that the homeowner now has the responsibility to install the sod, trees? Why did the liability switch there from the
That was always,
developer to the homeowner?
that's actually the private part, not the parkway. So that is actually in the original annexation agreement. So currently, if you buy a parcel in that subdivision, as a property owner, you would have to actually sod and put landscaping as required by the city code. You also pay, I think, a $1,500 payment to the homeowners association to make sure that the private part of your parcel does get, sodded and seeded. So that part is what is currently required. So what the proposal of the annexation agreement is that instead of paying $500 in addition to that $1,500 to the HOA, you have to actually currently pay that to the city. We don't want to be the middleman of keeping that extra $500, which we don't think that's needed. So that's the anticipated change. Obviously, anything can be changed. We're still negotiating with the developer and the property owner for any changes, and any final approval won't be until after the hearing on April 15th.
Okay. Thank you.
And any other questions regarding the amendment? And if not, I will leave it up to Lance for the next part.
Oh, you're gonna sit there.
You want to call for that? Yep, you just want to move on to the PZ1 then? Okay, so we're going to have Lance talk about PZ1, it's the amendment to the special use permit then.
Sure. So this one is an amendment to the special use permit for the planned residential development, the amendment to the preliminary development plan and preliminary subdivision plat for Oak Creek Phase 3A and 3B, and final development plan, final subdivision plat for Oak Creek Phase 3A. This was Planning and Zoning Commission case 2019-022. Sunny pretty much introduced kind of Yukon Development, Chris, so I won't go over a bunch of those things. But in essence, this is a submittal to change the plan development by deviating from what was the previously approved plans. The deviation was deemed a major change due to an increase in density by the two lots that's referenced by Sunny, the alteration of the lot layout, and a reconfiguration of the roadway to include what are commonly termed the eyebrows on the four corners of the three corners of the new development. Any major changes require action by the City Council upon the recommendation of the Plan Commission and include a public hearing at the Plan Commission level. The development agreement, as Sunny mentioned, is also up for review and agreement as well. Let's see, go to the next page. The item was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the regularly scheduled meeting on March 10th. There were no objectors present at that meeting. At that meeting, the PZC recommended approval with a 6-0 vote to approve the major amendment to the PUD, the preliminary development plan, the preliminary subdivision plat for 3A and 3B, final development plan and final subdivision plat for 3A, and subject to the following conditions. There's only 4, and I'm not going to read them out, but it's basically submitting a final site plan prior to the committee of the whole, which he has done, getting all the necessary governmental permits, which will be required prior to any construction commencing, placing the financial guarantee that we require in place prior to construction commencing, and getting all of the required engineering fees included as well. I believe you have plans and other things in your packet. I am going to put them up there just on the screen for reference for those that are watching. This is Oak Creek, which is south of Oak Avenue, east of Farrell Road, and it is the final phase of Oak Creek. This was the original approved plan back in 2006. This is the current proposal for Phase 3A and 3B. This is the final development plan for Phase 3A. So just as kind of clarification of this, he's getting the preliminary approval for the entire Phase 3A and 3B, but only final approval for the north half of that component. These are some of the architectural elevations. They're going to be the same as what he has constructed in phases 1 and 2, so those will be very consistent with what he had before. With that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
I guess I'll go back to what I asked before regarding the north-south road. I counted how many plots are on each side of the east-west road. There are 11 in total from east to west before someone would be able to venture into their into different parts of the neighborhood. And also, because of the landscaping modifications, does this also mean that there'll be no parkway trees in the right-of-way?
In answer to your second question, yes, there will be parkway trees in the right-of-way. That is something that is standard and required for all developments. So that is something that we would not, double negative, not have. So those will be included, yes.
Thank you.
The answer to the first question, that is obviously an answer that the developer can respond to.
Okay.
But we can have everybody kind of go through any comments or questions, because he'll have to come up here and basically take this seat so that you can all see him and hear the responses.
So are there any other questions that we can add? Okay, then I guess that's your question, Chris.
I don't know where I'm looking at, but good evening, council. Okay. Good evening, council. Good evening, Mayor. In these trying times, this is kind of a different layout, I think, none of us are used to here, so it's kind of like watching Netflix, but I'll try to answer your question. The original proposal for Oak Creek was for 164 lots total, and it was preliminary platted back in 2003. If I'm not mistaken. When we purchased the property, we reduced that number down to 161 lots. The overall configuration of the layout is pretty much the same as what it was from back in 2003, and the road configuration that we changed in 3A and 3B is pretty much the same on those, how would you say, your east-west streets. And the major component is with the stub streets going to the east and to the south is the only thing that we really changed. And with that we gained back a couple of lots because of that configuration. That's, as for the length of the roadway, I think we have that in Unit 1. We've got a couple that are pretty long also in there too. But I don't know if we can accommodate that at this given point or not. But hopefully that answers your question.
But just so I understand your question, Mark, are you saying, like in this particular picture that's up right now, that a road where lot 135 and 146 is what you'd look for a center connection instead of those two lots? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in order to make the neighborhood more walkable, if something was previously done in 2003 to 2004, a lot has changed since then in terms of people wanting to get out more in their neighborhoods. And if we're going to be more adaptable, I would like to see a north-south connection, especially if we've gone from 161 to 163, but it was originally allowed for 164. We do have some modifications already for the development, and so I would like that north-south connection to be heavily considered. And as you said, Mr. Mayor, whether it was lot 149 and 37, whatever is directly north and south of each other, if there was, if you took those 11 lots in a row, you took 2 lots away and you had a north-south street right in the center.
Just talking out loud, I mean, it doesn't necessarily need, if walkability is what's important, and I think it is, and I agree with you, Mark, I think that a lot has changed in the way we've been thinking about subdivisions and, making communities and livable communities, not just a place where somebody drives in with their garage, closes up, and then leaves the next day for work and doesn't interact with the community. I think that mindset has been changing to having more community-oriented neighborhoods. It doesn't necessarily need to be a road. It can actually just be a walking path that connects the sidewalks from one side to the other.
Yeah, right. That'd be another good idea if there was a connected walking path between the north and south. So you take out 2 lots, you have a break in the monotony or the length of both roads, where you have so far 11 and 11. That is a long distance to walk before you get to the next street. So I hope that we do see some kind of modification with that. But thank you for your time.
Thank
I don't know
you.
if we're supposed to put our opinion in, but I totally disagree. I have no problem with the way it's laid out. I don't think we need to add a path in between. I don't think we need to take 2 lots away from this development. So, it was designed this way. Obviously, we have to meet code when these things are designed in the first place. So I have nothing against it. It can stand the way it is. So I don't know if you want opinions from everybody else or not.
Can we verify does the code speak to how long a road should be or not?
The guidelines do, design guidelines do, but those were put in place after this was originally platted.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
So Catherine can speak, or who's talking?
You're talking, Catherine.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, I like the continual circle. I think it helps with neighbors because you know who's in it. You walk the circle, you continue a path. And this is actually a lot less homes than my circle, and I like the circle. So I'm just gonna say, and if someone needs to get back through their house fast, they do cut through their yard, but it happens very seldom. And this is actually not too many homes to do a lap. So I actually like it. I've lived with a circle like this for 17 years, and I think it's great.
I don't know if they heard your answer, Lance, where this was designed before our rules changed, so it's not out of compliance with its design.
Do you want to say that in the microphone? I think you need to sit there. Lance is going to respond a little bit to these comments.
And I'm fine the way that it is right now as well.
Okay. So what Ben was mentioning was when this was originally platted back in 2003, this area pretty much had the same layout as what you see it does now. The only differential between what was previously there and what you see now is there were 2 extensions that go to adjoining properties that we're connecting in the future, but those are outside of the city limits. That would be in the Joliet section of the area. The block length wasn't a constriction during those times when that was originally laid out. We do have considerations for block length in our current design guidelines, all of which we are for any current concept plans that are coming through. We are certainly actively looking to have our applicants and developers conform to those and work within those parameters. But as far as when this was originally platted, this kind of a length was allowable.
I have a question for the realtor. If they do, just out of thought, if a road was put through there, does that decrease the value of the houses right next to the road?
Can you repeat that question, Christine? I'm sorry.
But
Sure.
yeah, good.
If you put a road in the middle where Mark's suggesting, does that decrease the value of the houses right next to the road or increase it?
So you mean like the ones that they have over in Broken Arrow where there's the road that you go in, the first block to the right has a road. So basically the house has a road in front of it and a road behind it.
Right, yes.
Yeah, it most likely would make it a little bit less desirable.
Okay.
And just for clarification, I'm not advocating one way or another, but I think it wasn't about putting a road as much as a walking path between them. So it means the lots, one of those two of those lots would be potentially narrower, or four of them would be potentially narrower. But it's the same thing. It's like, I guess the question is some people are like, oh, I gotta live next to the area where everybody cuts through. Does that negate some property value? Possibly, I suppose. But I don't think Mark was necessarily looking for a full-blown road as much as a way to walk. All right, does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts? It sounds like at the moment, most everybody's fine with keeping it as is.
It would actually be part of the public hearing, so it would be an action item right
Okay.
after the public hearing on the second amendment to the annexation agreement.
Okay. All right, so we're going to put on for an action, and we'll go from there. Everybody okay? All right.
Yes.
All right, moving on to PZ2.
I got it. Yeah. So Ben's gonna go get the applicants, so just bear with us for a couple seconds. Yep, yeah, you guys can sit, take those chairs there. All right, so the applicants have made it into the room, so I will start item number PZ2. This is for a concept plan approval for a car wash on the southeast corner of East 3rd Street and East 9th Street. It is PZC case 2020-003. Went too fast. This is at basically the corner of 3rd Street and 9th Street. If you know where the old Pizza Hut building is, that's where this site is. It is incorporating and adjusting the creek that currently runs through that property that we'll get into in a little bit. The applicant, William Klump, on behalf of the William Klump, Maria Klump Living Trust, is seeking approval for a concept plan for a car wash located at the southeast corner of East 3rd and East 9th. Property is currently zoned C2, and a car wash is a special use in a C2 district. The applicant has been working pretty significantly with our engineering staff, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, trying to figure out how to deal with the stream that runs through the property. It certainly does pose some detention problems, but we feel like we have worked through those, even at a concept plan level. The plan shows a new 4,863 single-story commercial building. It'll be constructed with approximately 20 customer vacuums that you see along the front of the building. Those will be along 9th Street, and the queuing for entering the car wash will be headed northeast from that parking area and back around, and then come south through the car wash building itself. This was heard at the March 10th, 2020 Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. They recommended approval by a 6-0 vote to to approve the concept plan for the car wash in the C2 zoning district and the special use, acknowledging that the staff review at a concept plan level is pretty general, and a detailed review will occur during the preliminary and final plan submittals, that a special use permit will be required as a part of the approval, and that the concept plan approvals are valid for 1 year from the date then in which they are approved with their final plan. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Excuse me, Lance?
Yes.
I have a question for you. So you had said that there's a creek that's running through the property, and you said that that could be some kind of issues down the road. What kind of issues are you referring to?
So if I said it was causing issues further down the road, I misspoke. We have been working with the Army Corps of Engineers and our city's consulting engineer to try and resolve what the best way to handle that creek would be. And the applicant has gone through a number of different options for that. Basically, the creek is being routed through the property. And if you see that, it's kind of a somewhat oval-shaped or rounded rectangular space to the north end of the site. That is where the creek is going to be routed through. It's got kind of a dashed line that runs kind of diagonally through the middle of it.
Yes.
It will be routed through that portion of it, which will basically look like a detention pond, which allows for the storage capacity that would be necessary. And then it continues on the backside of the property just like it does currently today in its current condition. It will be cleaned up as a part of this process, but it will be routed primarily just like it is once it gets to the backside of the property. Their stormwater, because I know that that was a question as well, the stormwater is going to be held in tanks, basically long, big pipes that are going to be located underneath the parking spaces. So that's how they will store the stormwater itself.
So that, where the creek is now, it's basically going to go through a culvert. It's going to be covered, it's going to be a big
It
culvert
will
kind
go
of-
through a culvert underneath the entry into the car wash loop, but it will go into an open green area in between the car wash building and the route. I don't know if you can point that out, Ben.
So the big
Is there any chance that how low is that creek, and is there any chance of that creek ever filling up high enough so that it overflows and causes that kind of damage?
Yeah, once we get into the preliminary plan, they're going to be required to do a whole bunch of watershed modeling or floodplain modeling on there, just to make sure that they've got enough capacity to handle all of that. And because this is also governed by some of the Army Corps rules as well, they'll be involved in the review process too. So not only will we have our own city engineering and consulting engineers reviewing this, it'll also be reviewed by the Army Corps of Engineers as well, plus their own private consultant that's working on the project. So we know that once we get into preliminary and final engineering, there will probably need to be some tweaks that occur to the plan, but in general, as it stands right now, just given the amount of coordination that's already occurred, we're feeling really comfortable that the layout as shown is pretty consistent with what we'll be able to accomplish once it moves down the road.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody got anything else? Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming out here. I know that this is, we had some dialogue about this for some time. It's a tricky parcel. I appreciate your patience with it. I think it'd be a great spot. I mean, there's a lot of traffic up and down that road every day. I think it'll prove to be a good spot. Is there anything that you guys wanted to say or speak to? Or you guys? Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything for our petitioners? Okay. So, were you good with putting this concept then on a consent agenda? Yes, everybody good?
Yes.
Okay, I see thumbs ups. All right.
Yes.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good.
Mayor's conference. Greg and the mayor's.
All right, next thing we're going to do is another concept plan. This is for the Townhomes and Single-Family Residential Community by MI. Ben is going to sneak over to my office and pull the MI representative, so he'll be here in just a minute.
This has been a fascinating process.
Right? I wonder if, should we put that at the podium instead? Like if you guys just sit, prop that,
We can't get the,
because that way anybody who needs to talk, and Chris and these guys, they don't have to come and fuss around the table. We just prop it up on the podium instead.
you're gonna move with me.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I asked that if you could, when you do speak, if you could speak closer to the mic, it does a little muffled and far away.
Okay.
We're actually being televised through the TV. I mean,
Yes, LCTV gets us live if we talk. Yeah, choose a seat. One of them is booby trapped. Yes. Yeah. Everybody gets a pair of shoes. All right. All right, so here we go. So Lance is going to start us off. PZE 3.
So this is PZC 3, case number 2020-004 for the Plan and Zoning Commission. This is a concept plan review for a 246-unit townhome and single-family residential community proposed by MI Homes. Greg Collins with MI Homes is here in the audience with us. They are seeking approval of a concept plan for what was formerly called the Steeplechase sites 3 and 4. They are located between 163rd Street and 167th Street, directly west of Victoria Crossings. And it's, for the most part, surrounding Morris Park in Homer Township. Like I said, this was formerly known as Steeplechase Sites 3 and 4. Those are developed by Steeplechase Investments in 2009. The development ultimately never took place.
Can't hear Lance, can you go to the,
Is that not working now?
he doesn't have his microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought he was able to talk into the. My bad.
the TV dropped.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry. Well, you know what, Lance? Just start over again. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, sorry, I'm gonna start over again because I couldn't hear it on LCTV. Does that work now? Good? Okay.
Okay, they got
All
it.
right. So, bear with me while I repeat what I just said. This is for a concept plan approval for a proposed 246-unit townhome and single-family residential community proposed by MI Homes. The applicant, Greg Collins with MI Homes, is here in the audience with us tonight. They are seeking approval of this concept plan for what was formerly known as Steeplechase Sites 3 and 4. It's a 90-acre parcel located between 163rd Street and 167th Street, directly west of Victoria Crossings. It was originally developed by Steeplechase Investment back in 2009. Once it ultimately got to the final plan and approval, the development did not take place. The concept plan, as it's currently being proposed, shows 150 single-family homes and 96 townhomes across the property. This is similar to what was originally approved for the plan, but it actually inverts the quantity. So the original plan had 148 townhomes and 92 single-family homes. We are flipping that to basically say 150 single-family homes and 96 townhomes. In addition to this, city staff, the applicant, Lockport Township Park District, and Homer Township have been working together to find a way to expand Morris Park as a part of the Park District's land dedication requirements on this parcel, and we think that we've come to a resolution on that, and I believe all the stakeholders are on board with that plan. This was reviewed again at the March 10th Plan and Zoning Commission by a vote of 6-0. It was recommending approval of the concept plan with the 4 conditions that we typically apply to the concept plan. That our review is general in nature. We will certainly be getting more detailed as we go through preliminary and final reviews and approvals.
The amended annexation agreement will be necessary, and that will be submitted as a part of the preliminary and final plan applications, and that will modify some of the components of that annexation agreement, including the park dedication, some of the density and home elevations, and some of the architectural guidelines that were originally proposed as a part of that. We have had our engineers review some of the preliminary things. We think that we've started to get to resolutions on the majority of them. However, it will go into a lot more detail during the preliminary and final. And our concept plan approvals are good for 1 year following the date of approval. With that, I'll open it up for questions. And like I said, Greg is here in the audience if you have anything that you would like to ask him specifically.
Lance, was there, you had mentioned to me maybe some phasing. This isn't to be built at once. How does this work, the scheduling?
I believe that we have talked about 3 phases currently proposed, working its way from the south to the north off 167th Street. They propose that more than likely the model home park will be on the south end, more closely aligned with 167th Street, but certainly done in phases.
And about what time frame, like overall, does that encompass? 3 phases?
Good evening, Greg Collins with MI Homes. What's that?
You're in that window.
Oh, the American flag. I would say you're probably a 5-year build out.
A 5-year build it, okay.
Because this is almost similar in unit count. It's just I think Sagebrook was 237, 230, which was again about I think a 4 or 5 year build out.
Okay.
I have a question. During the planning commission meeting, there was some engineering issues adjacent to Victoria Crossing West in regards to drainage of water. During the engineering study, I just wondered if that's going to be somehow incorporated, those concerns will be incorporated into the engineering study we'll be seeing.
I think you just need to get closer.
Okay. Oh, let me turn on my mic. All right, so there was a question.
There was a question during the planning zoning committee meeting.
I think, Darren, you should be able to talk into your microphone. That's what Sonny and I have been doing. There you go. And speak there.
There are some questions during the planning and zoning committee meeting about drainage on the western portion of Victoria Crossing West. And I was just wondering if during the engineering phase, if those concerns are somehow being incorporated into the water drainage on this site.
Okay, I think you might, Darren, if you.
Just for figuring out what's
Do
wrong.
you want me to just repeat the question? And
Yeah, if you could repeat the question.
yeah, the question was during our plan commission meeting, there was a resident of the adjacent subdivision to the east talking about issues that they had with their detention pond and overtopping. So both at the meeting and then after the meeting, we talked to the resident, and we've already, we talked to him about, we will be studying how, because that pond outflows towards us. So through engineering design and stormwater design, we'll have to incorporate and study that to see what's coming off of that, how it relates to our property, how we capture it and either detain or move it forward as we would in any kind of final engineering design. So we've already went out, we've already topoed all that area in order to get an idea as to where that pond elevation is at, so that we're already in that design phase to kind of, again, be forthcoming to already address those comments when we get into that engineering Q&A with Public Works.
Lance, you had some conversations with our school districts on all these projects. Can you give some insight on feedback?
Yeah, we have met with Homer 33C on this project. I have talked with him on 3 different occasions, and Greg actually attended a meeting with me to talk to them specifically about the project as well. So they are fully aware of it. They know that it is on the agenda for review and was on the agenda on the March 10th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I want to make sure they are in the loop. Okay, any other questions out there?
I just want to make sure I see, how many exits and entrance are there to this subdivision?
Can we go back to the plan view? There you go.
Yeah,
I
so,
see one, is there one on Division? Am I seeing that correctly?
yeah, so there is one here on 163rd Street. There is one here on 163rd Street.
Okay, so there's two, okay.
There is one here on 167th Street. There is a future planned connection here that would ultimately go to 167th Street in the future if and when this parcel sells. There are also connections to the west and to the east as well into the adjacent properties. This is something that we've been working in particular very hard on to try and make sure that we have full connections with the communities around us, so that we don't end up with a lot of situations where we have one way in and one way out, and if something blocks the intersection, nobody can go anywhere.
Lance, you had mentioned that there was some connections between,
Consideration, that's very important.
Yep.
Lance, you had mentioned there was some consideration for Victoria Crossing residents to come out and get to Morris Park. Can you show on that map how that would work?
Yeah, so that's a great point. One of the really good things about this plan is it is really well connected from a bike path standpoint. There is a pipeline easement that runs along the east edge of the property. This will have a bike path that connects the existing bike path that currently runs along 167th Street along the south edge of Victoria Crossings. It will connect to that existing location, run all the way north up to 163rd Street and then across into Morris Park. In addition, we're extending the bike path continuing it along 167th Street so that in the future we can connect it to the Veterans Memorial Trail once that gets built. There is also an existing bike path through Cedar Ridge, the townhome section that this will connect into, and it will have a bike path that connects all the way through the middle of the development as well to link in all the townhomes and the middle section of the area to be able to get to all the parks and the open spaces too. This is really well aligned with our master bike plan that was just published. All of the connections are shown and all the paths that we had proposed are shown in this development plan, so we feel like we've got a really good start on getting everything well connected, both pedestrian-wise as well as vehicular.
And can you speak to a little bit about some of the aspects about Morris Park itself that you and the Park District talked about?
So we have been working now for about 5 months or so with the Lockport Township Park District and Homer Township on this. I won't bore you with all the details, but these parcels were a part of a larger development plan that went north of 163rd Street and also includes properties south of Cedar Ridge. All total, those 3 development projects had a combined park dedication requirement. The park dedication requirement that was originally assigned for this parcel was this location on the west side here. And in talking with the Lockport Township Park District, they had little interest in having a park 150 feet away from another park, and in such a narrow configuration that it became relatively unusable for them. So we started conversations with Homer Township because we know that their soccer activities that they currently host out here are very well used and well attended. And so we asked them whether or not they would be interested in accepting the park district's what would typically be considered their land dedication, whether or not Homer Township would accept that, and Lockport Township would release it. So this big white area that you see on this side of the plan is that dedication. So all the soccer fields that are currently in Morris Park could be extended over into this area. There are some trees that will work with them to retain that are currently on the site. We also think it offers them the opportunity to expand their parking lot. One of the issues that they have currently is when they have a busy soccer event, they have people that park on 163rd Street, which creates a really unsafe condition because the road in its current condition is basically a 2-lane road. They have also had people park on the west side of the pond in this little area here, which is not authorized for parking, but people ultimately end up doing it anyways. So we think this is a real opportunity to make Morris Park function significantly better than what it does today.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Any other questions, council?
Yeah, one question. Let's, in this drawing, I don't see anywhere, is there, parking for guests? There's no guest parking.
So this is, yeah, I mean, all the streets will have on-street parking. I mean, obviously not overnight per our current rules, but you'll be able to park on any of the streets, and they're normal driveways, just like any other subdivision that has 2 spaces at a minimum between the garage door face and the sidewalk.
All right. Anything else? We're good as a concept, putting it on consent? Do you have something, Joanne?
Excuse me? I just wanted to add, there is no exit on Division Street, right? That street does not go all the way through, right?
No, this would exit right here. If you can see where my mouse is pointing, that's the location that will exit onto 167th Street.
The answer is yes, Joanne, it does.
Yes.
Division and 167th Street is one of the same.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Because you're saying same division, okay. As long as we're on the same street
Yep,
here,
yep,
okay.
yes, very much so.
Okay. All right, very good.
All right, friends, are we good with consent then, as this is a concept?
Yes.
Everybody okay? No nays? Okay, we'll put it on for concept, thank you. Or consent, sorry. All right, PZ4.
So with this one, we won't have to wait for an applicant. They are not in attendance tonight, not for any reason. They just, a couple of the people are health deficient, and so they didn't want to attend in person. And so they are going to answer any questions that we would have in between the committee, the whole meeting, and the city council meeting. But to open this is a special use permit for a planned residential development. It's an amendment to the preliminary development plan and the preliminary subdivision plat. It's an amendment to the final development plan and the final subdivision plat for Clover Ridge. This is PZC case 2019-014. The applicant is John Wade. On behalf of A&J Construction Company, they are seeking approval for a special use permit for a residential plan development with an amendment to the preliminary and final development plan and plats for Phase 3 of Clover Ridge Estates. Just as some background, Clover Ridge Estates, the original PUZ was approved in 1995. The development was comprised of 3 different phases. Phases 1 and 2 were constructed between 2002 and 2005. Those are the townhomes that are currently existing on the west side of Clover Ridge Drive and the single-family homes that are south of this particular property. What you see on your screen right now is 159th Street on the north. The Classic Car Wash is the building directly north of the yellow outline of the property, and the yellow box does outline the property. In 2019, the applicant came forward with an interest in this particular property, formally submitted plans for a 44-unit townhome development, and due to the number of amendments that are required, it required a new PUD to have this happen. The 44-unit townhome will consist of 16 2-unit buildings and 4 3-unit buildings. The property will be subdivided into 20 lots, which would allow the future homeowners to own a portion of the lot along with the interior unit. The architecture, we feel, meets all of our design guidelines, and there is buffering along the southern edge where it abuts the existing single-family residential. This was reviewed at the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 10th as well. They recommended 6-0 to approve the project. on the screen, you have the landscape plan, just to go back and give you a little bit more detail on the layout. You can see the buffering that currently goes around the project, if you can follow my mouse. This is the classic car wash up in this area. These are the 3-unit buildings that are here. The rest are surrounded by the 2-unit buildings. This is actually a reduction in unit count from what was originally proposed. There were 60 units that were in the original plan. This is reducing it to 44. So this is a fairly significant reduction in the density level on this. It is basically one ring road. This is a small enough property that we do not have the 2 ways in, 2 ways out. It is surrounded by commercial on the east and north sides of the site, and existing residential on the south side and existing residential on the west side. So we're pretty limited in the connections that we can ultimately make, and it's very consistent with what was originally approved way back when. The recommendation by the Plan Commission was for a 6-0 vote to approve the special use permit for the planned residential development, the amendment to the preliminary development plan subdivision plat, and the final development plan and subdivision plat for the Clover Ridge Estates Unit 3, subject to the following conditions: that prior to construction, the financial guarantee will be posted, that the required engineering inspection fees will be posted, and any necessary governmental permits will be acquired, and the city of Lockport shall be copied on all correspondence. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Can you go back to the plan view, please? So, I mean, ultimately, what is it, LFI? Don't they own the property to the east?
Yes.
And then is there, on the east there, what, is it just some trees, or is there any landscaping? Is there any?
Yeah, so there would be buffer landscaping along this eastern edge. If you can, I'm going to go back to the aerial photo. So you can see Aldi is right here. The Murphy's gas station is right here. The LFI property is right here. The Culvers is here. These are the properties owned by Silver Cross on this location. There's the classic car wash.
Yeah. What exactly is the special use need? What is it that?
So any PUD requires the special use to be tagged onto it as well, so.
You know, going back to Mark's thoughts earlier, and, you know, while this is something that's not as planned out as the other one was, I mean, having a way to access, instead of buffering LFI's future development, having some kind of walking access. I mean, where people could actually walk to the Culvers, or actually walk to Aldi, or actually, as opposed to going all the way up to 159th Street and then around and down again. Is there any, I mean, of course there is, but like, you know, maybe some consideration of finding a way to punching through with a walking path to make that kind of thing happen in the future when LFI does develop out.
Yes, I would fully support that, and I think that we can, you know, specifically either in this corner here or up in this corner where it already could go along an existing access point. I think that having basically a stub sidewalk, that when LFI comes through, we could require that they install the rest. We could also look at LFI's approved plans that they have from way back when, just to get a sense for where that might fall in their development as well, just so that we could try and locate it in the right spot.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? I see Joanne's lips moving.
Sorry. You know, my concern is always, you know, the exits. I don't like just having one in and one out. Because if you think about all the traffic that's coming in, you know, I don't know how safe that is. But, you know, because we've had trouble with other subdivisions, you know, that's my only concern is that there's no other way people can get out if they need to.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you, Joanne. This is one of those unique circumstances where it was originally designed and laid out 17 years ago. And, you know, Lacoma Court was the only way that they ultimately designed to get in and out of this parcel. And when they built the residential and kind of butted it up against the commercial to the north and everything else, it really limited the opportunities that we had to provide that second connection. If we had the opportunity to go back and redo the Clover Estates original plan, I would have preferred, very similar to you, to have multiple access points.
Anything else, friends? Okay. So what are we looking for this? This isn't a concept. What do we need to do here?
Yes.
It
So
could-
this is a request to go on agenda for,
It could be for consent.
yeah, this can be for consent.
Yeah, it could be for consent because there's no public hearing
Right.
requirement.
Yeah, there's no public hearing required for this, so it could go on the consent agenda.
The public hearing was already before the Planning Zoning Commission.
Okay.
I'm good for consent.
Does anybody object to a consent?
We didn't understand a word that.
The question was, do you want this on consent or
I'm
action
good
item?
for consent.
Okay.
I'm good for consent. I think it's a great idea. It's just a dump site over there.
Okay. All right, we'll put it on for consent, thank you. All right, PZ5, amendment to the preliminary development plan for at Lockport Square.
So this is a amendment to our preliminary development plan, final development plan to have a restaurant and drive-through facility in Lockport Square. This is specifically Lot 10B. You'll find out more about the lot in the follow-on case where we're subdividing it. It's a minor amendment to the overall plan unit development for Lockport Square. The project applicant has submitted an application for approval of those types of things, or all of those things, for a standalone 2,454 square foot restaurant with a drive-through facility on the proposed Lot 10B of the lot.
What?
Are you saying we're frozen?
You were, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, can hear you now.
Okay. Let's see, the facility will be operated under the Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen brand. As the subject property is part of a planned commercial development, this is the final development plan as a minor amendment to the overall PUD. On the screen, you can see where this is located. The Express Medical Center is the building that is on the right side of this aerial photo, and the 355 on-ramp southbound is the lane that's on the farthest right portion of this, this particular image. Here is a site plan for the location. It's basically a fairly typical drive-through facility with a fast food restaurant. This is probably almost the exact same layout that McDonald's currently has. West of here, it's the exact same layout that a number of the other restaurants that we currently have from a fast food standpoint in town. This is an approved use for this property. It was something that was originally contemplated when Lockport Square was originally laid out, but we are re-subdividing some of the lots to properly account for the size that this footprint needs, so that we can have a larger footprint to the west of here to accommodate something larger if and when that comes in. This was considered at the March 10th, 2020 Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. Commission found it favorable to move forward by a vote of 6-0. They recommended approval for the amendment to the preliminary development plan, or final development plan, for a restaurant with a drive-through facility on Lot 10B in Lockport Square, and a minor amendment to the PUD of Lockport Square with the following conditions: that all remaining items from the engineering review would be addressed prior to committee of the whole, which they have been, and that a separate sign permit for all proposed signage will be submitted for review and approval when the time comes for that.
All right, questions, concerns?
I have a concern. One of the things is it appears that everything we're getting, with the United Street is fast food. Concerned that
Sure, so I can,
What's the ultimate plan going forward on that? It seems that everything is fast food and there's no sit down dining.
I completely say, I would agree with you, Larry, and you're welcome to open a steak restaurant. I mean, that's what I'd say. It really comes down to it's not that, you know, we don't seek these things, it's not like we don't, but our market is like right at that margin. It's like, you know, you have to have kind of that 150,000 person, you know, 5-mile radius population to get those kind of that next level. And we're about 95,000 people. We're just about 15,000, 20,000 people below what the market looks for to open those mid-level restaurants. And that's always been our struggle here. It's not that nobody's thinking about it. It's not that, you know, that's all we eat is fast food. Say that again? Well, but then build your steak restaurant, man. I'm all for it, man. You have my full support, Larry, if you want to open a restaurant. The problem is the guys who run these things are saying, yeah, I'm not willing to put the money in because they look at the numbers. Trust me, man, I've worked on this for the last 7 years I've been doing this, because it's not like when I would go to the ICSC conference, I go in there and say, I'm looking for the fast food. It's like, we're all looking for the larger sit-down restaurants. The rub is, the developers are just not at that point with our population numbers. We're just like, or they're too close to other places that exist already. And you can say build it and they will come, but it's their money, not mine. I can't force a guy to open something. And then the other thing I'll say is this, man, every time somebody says, why can't we get a steak restaurant in Lockport? Every restaurant in the downtown that has a steak takes it off the menu in 3 months because nobody orders the steak. So I don't know what to say about that, man. Everybody says they want it, but unless they're going to eat it 3 times a week, we just don't have the population numbers to do it. And that's been the big struggle with that kind of mid-level restaurant. It's just been what we faced.
Larry, I would add to that the build it and they will come model that you mentioned is similar to what Panera and Mod and Chipotle have kind of done. They initially stuck their kind of thumb into the water here. We didn't quite meet their modeled numbers, but they are performing well. But what we have tried to do to maintain some level of opportunity for a larger restaurant is in this next case where we subdivide this lot out, is we have an option to create a larger lot which would accommodate one of those mid-level sit-down restaurants. This opportunity is similar to a lot of things where the property is zoned and entitled for this type of use, and based on property owner rights, they have the opportunity to build this type of facility in this location. That doesn't mean that we don't stop aggressively trying to get other franchisees or even independents to try and come and locate in this location. I can tell you for sure, just in my conversations with Jim Purinton and the other folks that are developing this, they're reaching out to as many as they can, and I know that we are as well, both currently but also in the past. And as the mayor mentioned, it's just one of those very difficult things where our traffic counts on 159th Street are at about 17 to 18,000, and most of those restaurants are looking for 20, and they're looking for a larger population. And as much as 2,000 people per day doesn't seem to be a big number to me, it's a huge number in the retail industry.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way, Larry. So while trying to, inspire, I'll just throw a mid-level restaurant out there, Red Lobster to come, right? I'm appealing to a bunch of guys in a boardroom at their corporate headquarters in Minneapolis, and they look at a graph, right? It's like, this is the amount of people, this is the demographic, this is how close we are to an existing Red Lobster, and if you don't fit into that column, they don't care how inspirational I speak. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to a non-corporate entity, when it comes to, working with, like Joey Gallus with the Stagecoach, or Peter Limburger with Tangled Roots Lock and Mule, or even Papa Joe's expanding in, people that I can sit down and talk to face, we can get them inspired and buying into Lockport, and they have been, right? They're starting to build those restaurants. But when it comes to the corporate guys, they just don't care, man. If you don't fit into the formula, you ain't getting no Red Lobster. So that's just kind of the way it works. And this development at Lockport Square is the classic highway development of America. So we'll continue to work in those other areas where, we can have nice, good face-to-face meetings, like whether it's with the Tangled Roots or Scott Strutchen or these kind of guys who, will build their own restaurant as opposed to a chain. We'll still keep working on those, and we are getting those now, so. All right, anything else, friends?
Personally, I think I've had my fill of fast food within the area. So I do look forward to different types of development when it comes to restaurants, sit-down restaurants, healthier fare. But I don't know, I feel like that's what I'd like to say on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else got anything?
Renee's on two. Renee's on 2 cameras.
At least we're getting a variety.
Well, okay. Okay, friends. Yeah, I know. It is interesting coming back, so. All right, so do you guys want to put this on as an action item, or you want to put it on as a consent?
Consent.
All right. We have a request for action? Okay.
So go action then.
Yep, action. Okay. All right. And what else we got there? PZ6.
So this is the creation, or the mechanism to create the lot for Popeyes. So this is the final plat of subdivision for Lockport Square. It's the third re-subdivision creating this lot 10A and 10B. This was PZC case 2020-002. Jim Purinton, on behalf of Lockport Square, submitted the final plat. This re-subdivision will create lots 10A and 10B, one of which the Popeyes is located on. The proposed lot 10A, you can see on your screen where these lots are located at. One of them is the Popeyes, the other one has no user at this time. I created a little bit of an enlargement on the right-hand side. The 10B that you see on the screen is the Popeyes lot. The 10A is the one that was created separately. It's important to note that there are 3 options in the way in which this lot 10A and the lot directly to the west, which is over on this side. So if you can imagine where actually it might be easier to see on so this section here, where I'm outlining right now, this is one whole section of outlots. So it's 9 and 10 originally. And what he's doing right now is we're just splitting off a small piece to get the Popeyes parcel on there. The options that we would then have, or the developer would have, is that he can combine 10A with the remainder of lot 9 over here to create a bigger parcel for a sit-down restaurant or something along those lines. He could just simply leave 10A as it is right now if something comes along that needs that, or he could combine these two and split those down the middle. So we're trying to provide him with some flexibility based on whatever marketing they can do to attract, and us both with him as well. This original plat was recorded in 2007. The first re-subdivision was recorded in 2017, and the second re-subdivision was in December of 2019. Like I said before, this is the third re-subdivision of this parcel. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this at their March 10th meeting. By a vote of 6-0, they recommended approval of the final plat of Lockport Square Third Re-subdivision. Any
I
questions?
would suggest that since this is in line with item PZ5, that this also be on action.
Sure.
So they're not separated.
Yep, that's fine.
So if you didn't hear that, Sunny recommended that this item be, if we want to take this forward, this item be put on an action agenda item as well, so it can go along with the Popeyes proposal.
Okay. Yep, I agree. That way, if by chance doesn't work, then there's no sense in splitting the lot, so we'll put that on action item.
Anybody have any questions?
All right, so that's all of our, a lot of growth things today. But now we get to CED 1. So, you know, this should be, this is, you know, the staff and I have been trying to look at ways to deal with this coronavirus that we've got going on and how it's affecting our local economy and our businesses. You know, we do have some money in the general fund that we could use for grants or for no-interest loans or whatever we come up with to try to help our small businesses here in the city get through this. I know Lisa's here and Ben's here, so if you guys want to talk a little bit about what you've been thinking, and then we can open it up for discussion here with the council to see what is it that we could do, what is it we'd like to do. So I'm sure you guys have something prepared, Lisa or Ben?
I can introduce it, and then we can, you know, continue to talk about it and take any questions that you all might have. As all of, I think everybody, did we lose the meeting? Nope.
No, you're still there.
Sorry. As everybody knows at this point, the governor issued the 5 executive orders. Oh boy.
There we go. It's back.
Okay. Thank you. Can everybody still see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you. The executive orders obviously created lots of rules and conditions related to the social distancing, as has been probably pronounced more often than not through the CARES Act that was just enacted, as well as some of the work that's going on at the state level. Everybody understands that this will have a detrimental effect on lots of businesses, particularly those that are in the food, prep, and service industries, and in particular the companies that have hourly workers associated with them. We started thinking about this as we heard the executive orders coming out for the shelter in place from Governor Pritzker, and we wanted to see if there might be some ways that we might be able to help those businesses that are in town try and manage their way through this time period. It will certainly be a difficult one. Even as of today, when nobody knows when we will ultimately be able to go back out and sit in a restaurant. And so we know that there are going to be ramifications that happen after this that we need to work with. We've been working and listening to all the other programs that are coming out from the Fed and the state to try and figure out how we can best help our community and our businesses stay on their feet and get back in traction. We specifically are trying to help our independently owned businesses so that they have a better chance of succeeding on the backside of this and being able to stay open. In the memo, I put some additional information in there, but I'll kind of go through some of the big picture items. We are asking for or recommending a $350,000 allotment for this out of the excess reserves. The city's reserve fund policy is 4 months, and Ben and Lisa can both get into more detail on that once we get into it. We currently have more than double of that in place. We have an application that we have created for this program. That that was in your packet. Our current kind of proposal that we wanted to at least start with is that applicants could receive a grant up to $25,000 that could cover approved cost of eligible expenses that I'll get into in a second, and then a potential for a second round depending on if there are dollars remaining, if there are extreme circumstances for some additional funding. Any of the applications will be reviewed by a review committee made up of myself, Ben, Lisa, and Sunny, that will then provide whatever the maximum amount allocated based on some business models and other submittal requirements that we have outlined in the application. This grant, one of the things that we are trying to do in an effort to help the independent businesses, if it's a grant, it wouldn't preclude them based on the information that we currently have on the other loans and other things that are available at the state and federal level. It would not preclude them from applying for those other loans, which is an important consideration, because what we don't want to have happen is we don't want a business to apply for a loan, then not have any ability to take any other funding, even if it might be more than what their original loan was for. So we want to try and work within the system to provide the biggest bang for the buck that we can make for our business owners. Eligibility criteria, it's basically an existing business that's sales tax producing. We have a series of categories that we slot them in when they submit their application, and they have to have a bricks and mortar location within the city's boundaries. The second piece of it is any of the businesses that submit an application must have an approved business permit and occupancy permit on file with the city. From an eligible expenses standpoint, the following are eligible for payroll, operating expenses, perishable foods, specifically for the restaurant industry, and any other bills that aren't otherwise payable because of the crisis, exclusive of any of the ineligible expenses, which are construction-related capital improvements. So we don't want people building something that they wouldn't need to build to get back on their feet. No signage or advertising, no past due lease, loan, or utility payments, no uniforms or any other items that they would currently have sufficient stock for prior to the executive order. Basically, the intent of that is if they had things before the executive orders went in place that they can use after the executive orders went in place, we don't want them purchasing glassware and silverware and other stuff just to simply improve their business. In the application itself, it has a series of application criteria and submittal requirements. The preference or the review of the project would occur based on the following items. We would review it as a committee, as I established earlier, within 5 business days of a proposed due date of May 1st. We would give first preference for the grants to eligible local businesses whose operations have been curtailed or shut down by any order of the state of Illinois or the federal government. So that is basically all of our local independently owned businesses. Within that category itself, there are 3 priorities. The first priority is any independently owned and operated business with only one location who has done their best to try and maintain their operations to the extent allowable. And it's exclusive of businesses that have a dedicated drive-through location. The second priority within that first category is any independently owned business with only one location, so that would include the drive-through locations in that standpoint. And then the third is any independently owned business with more than one location. And then, so that's in the first preference category. The second preference is basically any other business that hasn't been shut down or has had their operations curtailed by the COVID-19 executive orders. Series of documentation requirements reflective of their losses and revenues, weekly revenues, that'll all be a part of the packet that we would then review as a part of that. So that's kind of a general outline of the program. I know that many of you have had a chance to review this, so we are certainly open for thoughts, and we will be happy to answer any questions as they come up.
All right, crew, what are you guys thinking? May have some thoughts on this? I'll reserve mine here for a while.
I think it's a very good idea. This is a solid piece of work. I'm like, kudos to the staff that thought of this and put this together. Really well thought out.
I like it as well, and I think it was really an excellent idea. I agree with Mark. But I have a few things that I want to go over that I don't exactly, I have some questions for. Is this, it's going towards restaurants, but then you say other businesses. Is this for everyone that creates the sales tax revenue? Or is this just for restaurants? Because I think it should be for every business.
Yeah.
Every sale.
So the way that this is laid out, it's any sales tax producing business that is in the community, and then those various preference categories and priorities would then fall into place after that point.
If I could add something too, I've spoken to many of you on this offline over this week, and I appreciate everyone's feedback on this. And what I was getting a sense was, for the majority, did want to launch some type of grant program like this. The feedback I've been getting is maybe a little differently administered than we had proposed, which is fine. I'd like to propose that we have at least maybe 2 tiers. I think, whether it's 10,000, if you have a sales tax up to 500,000, you could get up to 10,000. If you have a sales tax business that's up to 2 million, revenues, then you could get up to 20,000, right? This initially was started, as many communities have done, business loan programs, and we realized quickly with the staff, and I want to thank Sunny, Lance, and Lisa for working with me on this, where we didn't really want to get into the banking business, right? We didn't want to get into collateral and liens and things like that. This was meant to be a short-term shot in the arm. For basically, we were focusing originally on restaurants and bars, people that needed a shot in the arm, that had lost a lot of perishable goods. That was a main factor in it. And I think with all good intentions, it's not going to be perfect, right? We're not going to be able to serve everyone, or at least not be universal in our plan. I think if we give everyone $5,000, it may mean a lot to one business and not as much as the other. And I'm not saying that someone wouldn't appreciate a check for $5,000, but when they're trying to reopen a business that requires $50,000 to get open, you're really only helping them about 10% of their need. So we're trying to make the right impacts. It's a very challenging situation where we're not trying to pick winners and losers, but we want to, that's why we're asking for the applications. We're asking to see their books. I sent an email out on some of my comments on this the other day. I hope you all got a chance to take a look at it. Again, the application process will require them to show us their books. If they were a healthy, vibrant business before, they're probably going to be a healthy business after the virus situation, as they talk about this V recovery. And we're trying to help them a little sooner, right? If we wait too long and, by the time hopefully they'll get to these other grants that are available through the federal government, and there's some forgivable components in that for rent and utilities and things like that. So I'm honored to try to serve and help this community. I look at it as a thank you to the independents and proprietors of our community that have invested in our town, and we're willing to reinvest back in them in a time of need. And so it's almost a charitable thing. And so I certainly understand the idea of we've got to give something to everyone that's eligible, but I think it's going to be difficult to make some decisions and form this committee and get the applications. So my recommendation is we kind of focus on how much money you'd like to risk, and it is a risk that we have to understand that if we give someone $10,000, that doesn't mean that they're going to be successful 10 months from now. We hope they are. Part of those interviews, applications, and audits of their books with Lisa's help will help us, pick people that, we don't want to be giving out money and have them not succeed, right? This is about people that want to stay here and stay open and get some help to reopen.
And I think staying in a factor of maybe a couple of tiers where certain revenues can meet one standard that's less, so maybe we can give a little more to a few more people than I had originally anticipated, and yet we have a little bit more money available for some larger investors in our downtown or in other areas on 9th Street that, and again, this isn't really meant for chains, you know, we're not here to help Starbucks, but it's more like for the Georges and things of like that nature, so. I'll turn it back over and we'll try to pick on each one of you to give us your comments, and we'll take some notes here.
The issue I have is, let me call up the other mic.
While we're waiting for him, I'll make my 2 cents. No, and I think it's a very good idea, and I like what, Dennis explained it. I think giving back to the community and the businesses is a great idea. And again, thanks to the help for putting it together.
So the only issue I have at this time is a maximum of $25,000, because it's just simple math, $350,000 potential, and then gives us a maximum of 14 businesses versus, say, an initial go-round of, say, $10,000 for eligible businesses, gives us a potential 35, and we may or may not get 35 businesses of any type ask us for this grant, and so I'd much rather go ahead and have like an initial $10,000 for the first go around, and then if there's any monies there left over, then they could apply for a second round up to 10,000. That just gives more businesses the opportunity to go ahead and participate. That's just what I was thinking.
I would be good with Darren's recommendation.
I like Darren's recommendation. At the same token, I do kind of like the tier factor as far as if they're normally generating X amount of dollars. But I think the initial first go around, I think that is a good idea, because then we'll see, exactly, we might get a better number of how many really need it and how many really want it, and we'll take advantage of it. And then we can reevaluate each situation after the first go around. So I agree with Darren.
I agree with Darren as well. One thing I would like to cover though, eligible expenses, and ineligible expenses, because you have ineligible expenses is being advertising and utility things. And I think as far as advertising, you're going to need that if you're going to start back up. And as far as utility payments, I know that some people have deferred those costs and put them on the back burner. They've called ComEd, they've called NICOR, and they're putting them off. So that should be an eligible expense.
I didn't catch most of that. Did you guys pick that up?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we thought about with the advertising piece is if somebody's doing pretty well, I'm not sure if we want them to go shoot off $10,000 in fireworks to, advertise that they're reopening their business. So we were trying to focus it to a degree on trying to get their hourly workers back into the business and take care of some food that they probably lost at some point, or any of those a little bit more hard items. I think that advertising is one of those subjective things that you can do in a small way, or you can do in a big way, or a creative way, or a less creative way. But
And what about then utility payments that people have deferred?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Christine. You kind of broke up.
What about utility payments?
Yes.
That businesses have deferred or, called ComEd and said, I need you to hold off on paying me.
Yeah.
Why can't they use this money to pay those?
Yeah, in talking with some of the other communities, they have these programs What they were hoping not to fund is businesses that haven't been paying their bills for 6 months, so that it didn't have anything to do with this particular crisis. It was bills that were 2, 3, 4 months old or late, and now they got an infusion of cash and they can go back and pay their back.
Well, they wouldn't even qualify for this grant program because they wouldn't be a successful business anyway.
Well, they
I'm
could,
just thinking about businesses that had to defer this for this last month.
yeah, I mean, that'll be something that would certainly show up in the income statement that we require as a part of the review process. I'm not sure if we can say if they are or aren't a successful business based on the utility payments alone.
I just feel it should be part of the eligible offense.
Okay. Maybe utility payments during the period of the executive order.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Right, like a portion of it. Because we're
I
only.
would agree with that too.
I would agree with that.
You would find that out during the qualification period.
Sure.
With the documentation that they'd be giving and providing, seeing that, you know, what outstanding accounts payable they have off their balance sheet. How that has grown from
Okay.
month April through, you know, from January, say.
I think there may also be programs for utility
You know, lease payments,
payment
rent,
that, yes, so
all that should be,
we're kind of, yeah, exactly, so.
Yeah. The other thing that Sonny just brought up is, you know, again, in the vein of trying to aim our infusion of money where it can best be served, some of the other grants and loans that are available do cover those utilities and other pieces. That doesn't mean that every business goes after those particular loans. We have talked to a couple, actually a number that have been applying for them. The deadlines were actually today for the state ones. The federal ones are a little bit more rolling, but they are like this week. And so there are people that are applying for that. The Payroll Protection Act that was rolled out as well is another piece that does cover utility costs. So, you know, make no mistake, there will be some gray area as we evaluate these things, and we obviously want to make the best choices that we can in how we apply the funding. But it won't be a perfect science, I will guarantee you that. But we want to help where we best can to get our folks back on their feet. One thing I do want to clarify in relation to the 10 and 20 grant, there may be some businesses that apply that only need 3 to cover what their costs are. I want to make sure that we aren't saying it's a $10,000 regardless of whether you need 1 or 12, and then a $20,000 whether or not you need 11 or 70. Yeah,
as part
okay.
of the qualification process. is
Yes.
What they need.
So what Darren had mentioned is as long as we can use the words up to $10,000 and up to $20,000, if you all would be okay with that, I think that would be the process that we could go to give us some more flexibility.
Do you, how many of these, with the grants or loans, does it affect the accessibility of getting other monies? Like you mentioned that it might on some level. Like I've information that it just, because I've been trying to gather information for this discussion. Like the SBA, if you have a 12,000K payroll right now, that SBA will loan you money and forgive it up to in 90 days. And so if we have a business applying for that, does something like this interfere with that? And then how are we even going to know if a business is applying for that plus this? And it becomes tricky for us. Here's the thing. I think this is a good and honorable move. And I think we have some resources available to us to help our business community. It's very important to us. So I 100% agree that this discussion and action within the next few weeks here is very important to help our business community. But it's not an easy decision in that like, for instance, if it's just like, well, let's focus on restaurants, that's fine, but there are also some of the few businesses that were able to stay open, whereas some businesses couldn't stay open at all. If you're a nail salon, you got to shut down. At least restaurants were able to make some money. I had talked to one of the restaurant owners, and he says, yeah, we broke even one day. That was good. We took a little loss the other day. You know, he had mentioned, man, if I just had a few grand, that could really help us break even. And so when we throw numbers out there of 10,000 or something, I don't feel like, for me, I've got enough feedback from our business community. I did ask the chamber before I came in here. I said, look, if we came up with just a few good questions that you guys could send out to the chamber membership, not that you have to be a chamber member to qualify for this, but just so we can get some feedback from our business owners. It's like, what are the needs, right? Like, to break even, like, what's most important for you, knowing that there's SBA loans that will be forgiven if you apply for those. Are you more comfortable with, I even asked them, I said, why don't you guys start noodling some questions here tonight? Because they can send that out in a MailChimp, get it out, we can have some answers back in a couple days. With the way we're allowed to meet, we can have a special meeting on Monday and meet together to talk about this kind of stuff. Again, this is easy for us to connect and have this discussion. But I feel like I get concerned about not having some accessibility for a larger variety of businesses. I also like how we weed through, do we do first come, first serve? Is that how it works? I know other communities do it, but what happens if you get McDonald's, Chipotle, Burger King, or the first people that come in, right? So there is going to have to be some subjective decisions, and how do those decisions get made, right? Or like, okay, is, one restaurant, they stayed open this whole time and were able to get, pretty close to making ends meet, or maybe only had mild losses. Another place that just couldn't stay open because it's just the nature of their restaurant. It's, I think there's so many variables to this that I get concerned about, and I'd rather get a little feedback. I know you guys have spoken a little bit with the business community, but asking the chamber to get us some better information, because $10,000, I mean, we're just pulling that number out of the air as like, oh, that's a maximum. It may be nothing. It may be worthless, right? Or it may be 10 times, it may be 3 times more than anybody really needs. And so making these decisions, I'm finding like is going to be very difficult without a little bit more feedback from the business community.
Yeah, so a couple.
May I say something, please?
Sure.
So what I just want to put my 2 cents in. We have to keep, what we're doing is we're kind of saying thank you to the businesses that have reached a hardship throughout this COVID-19 shutdown. So basically what we're doing is we're saying thank you, for sticking, picking Lockport first of all, and staying with us. And this is kind of a token of appreciation is what we're doing to keep them or get them going again. But I agree that the big chain restaurants, they have money backing them up already. So we're really, I thought we were trying to concentrate on those that are smaller, smaller owners that own the businesses in town. So I think we just need to make sure that we stick with just this is a thank you, and we understand, and this is something that we can offer you. Maybe not everyone will accept what we're proposing, but then again they may, but we do need to be careful because who are we actually going to give it to? And that's, I guess, it'd be nice to give it to everybody, but the big chains really don't need it.
I totally disagree there. You don't know what somebody needs or doesn't need. And I also think that Steve,
You don't think McDonald's, you think that they need our help?
they've had a drop in sales. I'm sure everybody's had a drop. I agree with Steve in the fact that maybe we should talk to the chamber and see what those needs are. And I also think we shouldn't be just going after restaurants. It should be all businesses that create sales tax. Why are we just limiting it to restaurants? I realize we are the most, as a restaurant owner, we are the most affected. But you know what? So is everybody else. Every business in town could use a little boost right now.
And perhaps I misunderstood. I hear Sonny saying, we're not just targeting restaurants. It sounds like but we are, if I heard it right, looking at businesses only that generate sales tax. Is that correct? Yes. All right, so a business, I don't even know every business that generates sales tax.
You have to remember-
Does a hair salon generate sales tax?
But there's many businesses that generate sales tax that I wouldn't put into this. And that's why I think when you get to our application, it talks, and Lance is going to talk a little bit about some of the priorities that we put in for kind of a point ranking system. And I think it spoke to a little bit of what Joanne was talking about, which was if you're a self-owned proprietor, if you're owner of George's or whatever, right? George, whatever his name is, he gets some priority because they're a self-made restaurant. And he'll speak to the priorities, but again, it's kind of like, and I understand the angst, right? It's kind of like, how do we pick and choose? But certain businesses generate sales tax and haven't lost $1 in this, right? I would never say give any money to Walmart or Jewel or some other business that makes boxes that has really not been affected too much by this. And that's part of the application is asking for their losses, right? We're going to be able to determine if a firm is really short of money for utilities or anything else. Oh, I think we just got dumped. Oh, there we go. The application process is going to allow us to see what their losses is during this COVID-19 time period. And so that's part of where you're going to get your demand from, where some people may only need 8 and another group may need 15. And so part of this application is going to sort out some of that. What we could do, I think we've heard a lot about different amounts, and we can noodle this. We can talk to the chamber, get some of those other businesses' feedback. I've talked to some, Lance talked to some, Steve has talked to some. We can have the chamber send out a newsletter and say, what would you need help with, and try to assemble that and have it ready for either a special meeting, or we can report back to you all by email, and then also do something on the 15th. So there's 2 or 3 ways that we can at least kind of fine tune this for you before a final vote.
Yeah, so just
Can you supply us with a copy of the application?
It's in the package,
yeah, it should be in the packet.
Oh, that's what I missed it, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I would like to say something.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
So 2 things. I think it's still a little too early to see which business will survive. We do not know the end date of how long they're going to have to stay closed. Some restaurants, like we said, can still have business going on now versus others have no way of making any income. One business I did call today that does generate sales tax revenue is the Lockport Resource Center. Their landlord has given them payment for the month of April, but after that, if they don't have any money, they're probably going to have to close. There's no money then to run if they can't sell stuff. And so you've got other things like that. They provide a lot of beneficial services to people that you may not see behind the scenes. But I volunteered there, and they do amazing stuff. So those are other things that you're going to have to consider, stuff that you might not think of every day, that are providing a lot of benefits to people that are living here, that are struggling on a daily basis. They come in and they do amazing things when they come into there, and they help them get back on their feet over and over. But you've got businesses like that you might just see disappear. And so those are other things we have to consider too.
Yeah, and I think too, for me,
It's really too hard to decide right now which businesses are going to be able to make next month's rent. But I think we really should be encouraging them all to try and file for the state and federal grant as they can. So that's where I think we should be pushing them to. And if we do that paperwork, because if we can go open back up in May 1st, that's great. But if we can't open back up May 1st and it's June 1st or it's July 1st, there might be people who can't make it that long. And the help we give for 1 month or 2 months won't be enough either.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
mean,
what I want to say.
and you know, there was some, you know, with the state had today for a deadline. I mean, my gosh, like it's the can you make a tighter deadline for businesses? And I'm sure the application was a monster to work out. So, I mean, the pressure for businesses to scramble around trying to find these funds is difficult. But, you know, I want to go back to a couple things. This isn't about saying thank you. This is about keeping our business community viable, because that's what creates a healthy community. That's why we do it. It's not because we're being generous. It's about how do we make sure that in this, you know, catastrophic situation for these businesses, that they can find ways to remain viable. And it benefits the community when they stay viable. Because even the non-tax generating businesses, if you're a business in a strip mall and you're going to go out of business, then it creates a vacancy. And then when we have these vacancies in these strip malls, it starts to snowball. You know how it is. And then people don't want to be in a place because it looks empty. And we just struggled for how long to get Corwin Plaza up and running. Yet every business in there isn't a tax generating business. Even the dance studio, right? Which is a very viable aspect of the community, and creates a lot of energy over there, but it's not a sales tax generating business. And so this is where I feel like I still want to get a little feedback from the business community. I'd like to be able to, you know, balance a little bit of this before we make a decision on, like, well, it's only going to be sales tax people because that makes the most sense to us. And granted, we only have so much money, and that's the rub, right? If we had $20 million to play with, it'd be a lot easier, but we don't. So that is our struggle, is keep our business community viable through this process. One of the other things I was thinking too was, instead of a straight up grant, perhaps another option is to kind of, you know, mix the two. Is if it's a $10,000 no interest loan, say beginning August 1st or September 1st, you have to make payments. You make $800 payments every month, and if you make 75% of those payments on time, the rest of the debt is forgiven. And so there is some ability to recapture money, keep these businesses floating through the time where they have to get back on their feet. And this is how we're not like picking a business perhaps that then ends up folding 4 months afterwards, right? And we just gave the money away. At least we're getting some of the money back. And it also helps keep a business part of that community knowing that, look, we just got to stick it out. We can make our payments, and then the last 25% of this becomes a grant after the no-interest loan is paid off. I know you guys have worked very hard and put a lot of effort into this. This is the first time we've got the chance to talk about it, though. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not ready to say this is the direction, let's go with it. For me, my request is get the chamber. They can get some questions out. We can even noodle some questions here, send them to me, to Lance, to Ben, today, tomorrow. We'll get them out in a small MailChimp survey, send it out to our business community, get some feedback from them, and then we can take another crack at this. And again, we can set up a special meeting online again here as soon as we feel like we need to do it. We don't have to wait 2 weeks and drag this out, because obviously people do need help sooner than later. Right. That would be my personal recommendation at this time. How does everyone feel? Is that step one for us?
I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a good plan to put that into effect, get the businesses' feedback, and then couple that with what we already know or would like to do.
I agree.
Okay.
And I'd really like to know, I would just like to know, are we still sheltering in place then May 1st, or are we going to be opening May 1st? So for me, a big decision is the next time they announce it.
And those are unknowns, right? Those are unknowns.
There's a lot of unknowns. It's a big difference. 1 month for a business staying closed is huge. 1 month could make or break it, so we can't be helping everybody, so maybe we need to help the person that can stay open 4 months.
Well, let's just go ahead and meet 1 week from today, with one line, and have a special committee of the whole meeting.
I am fine with setting up a special committee of the whole meeting one week.
Good with that?
Unless you guys got something else to do at home? No? Okay. All right. So let's do that. We'll get, yeah, I think so. All right, so we'll gather as much information as we can from our local businesses, and then we'll reconvene, and we'll keep it moving forward, so. Yep, that's our one item.
Yeah, one item, no formal action.
Okay. But the bottom line is, and I think we all agree, is that our business community is a vital, important aspect of any city, and of course for ours. And this is a way of trying to keep as many people viable as possible to maintain a healthy community. And that we have $350,000 to work with. It's not all the money in the world, but if we can find ways to put it in the right spots to make it helpful for people, that's what we're going to do. So there's hope for businesses here. We just have to figure out and how to fine tune this and make it work. So, okay. Thank you, staff, for all your hard work on this. Thank you, council. And we'll meet again on this in 1 week. So for now, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn committee of the whole.
So motion to adjourn.
All right. Everybody in favor? Ayes? All right.
We gotta work on the mayor's audio. He is in and out all the time. It's really difficult trying to listen to him.
My microphone?
Fix that for the next meeting or not?
Whose microphone? Yeah, we have our city council. Whose microphone, JR?
The mayor, when you talk, you're garbled. It's like all of a sudden we'll hear like one good sentence and then you hear a lousy sentence. It's just like all over the place.
It's just the way I talk, man.
To be right into a mic or something, but yeah, it's getting very frustrating.
Okay, sorry. I will go and talk on the other computer there. I'll go over there for the next part.
So is there any way why we're not seeing the mayor, Ashley, when he talks?
That's because I haven't been on. Here I am with the American flag behind me. We got you now. Does this work? Can you guys hear me better too?
I mean, I think we see it.
All right. Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, Joanne, I've been watching on the other screen, so I've got 2 computers up, so I've been watching the council meeting delayed by a few minutes, or whatever the time delay is. So I've been watching the mayor on the other screen.
Oh, okay. Didn't think of that. I got the agenda on one, and I'm on my PC.
Are we ready to take roll?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep trying to think of lines from the movie Patton because I feel like I should quote them on here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, can you do a roll call, please?
You got it. Saban. Saban.
Present.
Okay, Schreiber.
Here.
Bergbauer. Galogly. Deskin. Lobes.
Here.
Bartleson. Peretta. We have a quorum.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to have a consent agenda this evening.
So moved. Second.
All right, it was Joanne and was that Renee? All in favor? All right, so this evening's consent agenda, we have CL1, which is the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from March 18th. We have our regular City Council meeting minutes from March 18th. We have our special meeting minutes of the Committee of the Whole from March 26th. We're here, CA1 is to approve reappointments to our International Code, our Council Board of Appeals. There is our payroll period ending March 22nd. And lastly, there is the release of the bond for Murphy Express gas station. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Seconded.
All right, I think that was Mark and Larry. All in favor? Oh, we'll do a roll call, please. Okay.
Saban.
Yes.
Okay, Schreiber. Hello, Schreiber?
Yes.
Okay, Bergbauer.
Yeah.
All right, Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Peretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we have our, we're looking for approval for our bills on, up to March 24th. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I got Renee and I think it was JR. Oh, can I have an action, roll call?
Okay, Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer. Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Peretta.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay, next on the agenda is PW1. It's V3 to provide.
Mayor, can I do a, Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, can I do a point of order?
Yeah, what's up?
I would really like council members to, in future, explain why during bills they vote no, because should there be a concern that the rest of the council should know about? Because no concerns have been raised, so just in future, I hope that city council members can be more open if they have a concern about a bill. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so for tonight, though, we'll move on to PW1, which is looking for a motion to approve V3's professional services for the Phase 2 engineering for the 2020 downtown parking lot consolidation project. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll motion.
Renee, seconded by Larry. Any discussion? You guys want to hear Brent review this?
No.
We're all good on it? Yep. Okay, then we're looking for a roll call, please.
You got it. Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer. Bergbauer.
Yeah.
Okay, Galogly.
Yes.
All right, Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Peretta.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Was a yes.
Yes? Okay, motion passed.
All right, and lastly, we have PW2. We're looking for a motion to approve the Visa Sewer of Illinois LLC. They were the lowest bidder for the sanitary sewer lining program for the amount of $133,435. So we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 20045. Mark? Seconded by, I think that was
Christina?
Christina, okay.
Okay.
Any discussion, questions? All good? All right, my friends, looking for a roll call?
Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yeah.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Peretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, so before we adjourn, is there anything, anybody else has any new business, anything to say?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I just want to give a hearty thank you to all the city staff, public works, police, everyone that's been working during this time. It's been a very challenging time for everybody. So I just want to give a hearty thank you to all of our staff and all of our employees. They've been doing a phenomenal job during this unprecedented long-term event. I just want to give a wholehearted thank you to all of them.
Concur. Nice, thank you.
Second that. Thank you.
Very good. You know, there's a lot of good things going on, too. I mean, I was just, you know, we're, you guys know Space Lab. They're downstairs on our first floor. They just made, they're on target for making 6,500 face shields that are usable for first responders. It's one of the things that there is a shortage of, so they are dropping off a number of them for us tomorrow at no cost so that we can disperse to our police and fire department, and also DuPage Medical Group here in town and Dr. Hannah at the Express Medical. we'll be able to provide them with some of these things. And that was all done through Space Lab, which we're really appreciative of. I know that John LaFlamboy's Zombie Army was hand sewing masks with his people and getting them out there. That's been really great, just watching folks just really step up, and even just everybody from, taking care of their neighbors and looking out for one another. It's been just a big deal. So we thank everyone, and if nobody has anything else, then look for a motion to adjourn.
I do.
Nope. Lay it on us, Catherine.
So Lockport Love started buying gift cards today to pass out to residents. And so if there are residents that are in need, they should send an email to lockportpolice.info. And so those gift cards will be sent. They have to give a brief explanation of how their situation is, and then they'll receive a prompt response to pick up a gift card at the police station. So they just started doing that today. So that's somehow that's a quick program response turnaround that Lockport Love will be doing for some of the residents in town here right now. So they started shopping today for their gift cards. So they'll be using part of their money that was donated at the Christmas time to start helping people now. And so then we'll obviously have to raise them. And then secondly, with Canal Days coming up, I just want to remind everyone we'll have to probably talk about that at the next meeting, or at least have it on the May 6th meeting to discuss what we're going to do if we are not open to having big gatherings at that time in June. So we're going to need to be discussing that soon. Some bills are starting to show up too for Canal Days. So just wanted to talk about that briefly if you want to say anything, or we'll just talk about it at the next meeting.
Yeah, are there any bills that you feel, okay, here comes Ben.
And I'm sorry, before you move on to the next item, Catherine, what was the email for the Lockport Love?
B Ferry, B as a boy, FERRY at police.info.
Perfect, thank you.
I just was going to speak to Old Canal Day. So I've joined the committee this year. We are starting to make some deposits and things that we need to do in advance, and ordering tents and things. Some of those deposits may or may not be refundable, but at this point, we feel like by June, we should be back hopefully to normal. We will see. There's no guarantees to that. We are being careful with some of our deposits. We haven't ordered the liquor, for example, because that deposit is usually non-refundable. So there will be a window pretty soon, and I would say yes, May would be a good time to probably have that honest discussion. We're going to have another Old Canal Days committee meeting by virtual conference call here, I think on April 30th, and make some recommendations to the city. The city and the chamber have partnered on this for years. At this point, we're moving forward with the volunteers and doing the preparation and the work as if we're going to host it. And then we'll have to deal with a decision if the council so chooses in May. Maybe by the second meeting in May, we might have to make a decision. I'm guessing 30 days out for most deposit situations. So I think our second meeting in May is maybe this. I don't know if it's the 16th or 19th, but we'll check with some of those contracts. I can certainly report back in May as to where we are and what has been done. But we're moving forward like we're going to have this. We're hopeful that economy's going to open back up in May and be fine in June. But until we know more, we have to prepare as if we're ready to go. So.
And by the way, does this work better with me coming to this kind of setup? All right, so next meeting, we'll make sure I have, well, I'll just set up somewhere else. I think this works better than talking through the microphone. Okay, all right, we'll do it this way the next time. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Old Canal Days, Ben and I and Brent had a really good meeting with the IEPA in Springfield. We did a conference call and about being able to open up our 14 acres to make it usable for our Old Canal Days Festival and what needs to be done. And everybody had very good responses down in Springfield that we could get that turned around, not for this season, but during this coming year, so that we could be prepared for the next season to do it, 2021. So that was good. All right, friends, if there's nothing else, then we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Mark and Renee, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.